get set, where them hands, where them holes, where them throws, you know what I'm saying?
And while they were here, they always wore masks.
This is my reaction and commentary on a video called My Biggest Regret as an Aikido Sensei by Rokas. I am subscribed to his martial arts journey channel. I really like his channel. I actually really respect his journey, even though I am also still a big believer in Aikido. Okay? But I think that the problems that he has with Aikido is not Aikido's fault. Is it his fault? It is partially his fault, but it's not all his fault. And ironically, I still respect and support his decision to walk away from what he felt was Aikido, because I think he's right in that. The thing is, his main antagonist in this story about his biggest regret as an Aikido sensei also had some good points, but he was also dead wrong. Now, if you're wondering how two people on opposite sides of an issue can both be right, and I still think that Rokas did the right thing by walking away from Aikido, even though the only bone I have to pick with him is I don't think he should blame Aikido. Sounds confusing, but it's not. Let's take a listen to this, and please go back and watch his original video, because his original video is awesome. I might play it for my students if I don't forward it to them. So let me see if I can pull this up, and we can listen to where his Aikido experience really starts going off the rails right here.
Knowledge with me. I felt special. I felt like I was on the right track. Yet after a few years of training, some things didn't line up.
That's good. It's good that he's questioning and he starts listening to his instincts.
When I was once attacked in the streets and wasn't able to defend myself using Aikido, my instructor blamed me. He told me to train more. So I did.
A lot of students don't like to hear that, but ultimately, I don't care what you study. If you get beat up, it's because you got beat up. I'm sorry you got beat up, but it's not your teacher's fault. It's not the style's fault. You got beat up. Maybe that person was just a better fighter than you. You don't know that. Maybe it was a situation that anyone would have gotten beaten up in. I mean, if you're attacked by 25 people or something like that, or they've got a weapon that you're totally unfamiliar with, how are you going to be able to defend yourself against something like that and come out unscathed? Did he expect real life to go like a choreographed movie? Now, that's not Aikido's fault. That's his fault. I mean, when we take a math test in school and we don't do well, is it always the teacher's fault? Or is it always the student's fault? Or sometimes is it just the fault of the situation? So this is one instance where his teacher is right, but I still think he should have left him, and you'll see why.
Yet when the same thing happened 3 more times, I could no longer stop myself from questioning. That was a very difficult process for me. My Aikido sensei was my role model. He was a father figure and a hero to me. I had a difficult time believing that he may be wrong.
Now, that's one reason where that's where any of us goes wrong. Our teachers are not infallible. Our father figures, our own fathers and mothers are not infallible. Nobody's infallible. Nobody's perfect. Nobody's going to get everything right all the time. So if you have a hard time even thinking that someone that you look up to so much could be wrong, the situation is probably starting to go wrong. Unless you're, a child, which in his defense, I would say that could have been it partially because he was a teenager. He's still in adolescence. He's still technically a child.
Eventually, though, I mustered the courage to question the efficiency of his teaching methods. I was wondering if it could be improved. He would hear little of it and shut down my questions. His answer was, just continue to train more.
Now, him not allowing Rokas to ask questions or not examining at all what Rokas is saying, that starts smacking of pride, and that starts smacking of the problem that Bruce Lee pointed out when he's talking about you create your own box and trap yourself there. If anything, he should be able to answer Rokas's questions with showing him or thoroughly explain to him, no, this is why I do this way because it has this benefit, and enlighten Rokas or allow Rokas to make the choice. But to just totally shut down his questioning, that's not good. I don't know how you're going to learn if you're not asking questions. You're not learning. What you're doing is just regurgitating. That's not learning, in my opinion.
Simply not good enough. But I couldn't shake the feeling that he was wrong and decided to search for answers elsewhere. I thought that I needed to find a better, more experienced sensei. That led me to move to Switzerland and become a full-time student at an Aikido dojo. This sensei was on the top of his game. He trained in Japan for 8 years. 2 of these years, he lived in an Aikido dojo where he learned from a legendary Aikido master.
Now that was a good idea. That was a good idea for him to go, well, let me just go deeper into this. Maybe there's something I truly don't understand. Now, I'm not going to go through this whole video point by point. I want to see if I can get to the point where Rokas is talking about when he became an Aikido instructor himself.
Not want me to participate in the tournament. He explained his concern that if I would participate for my... Over the years, I went up the ranks and opened a successful Aikido dojo with over 100 students back in my home country. Prior to that, I was also frequently covering classes for my sensei. With years passing, I became one of the most important figures in the organization my sensei was leading. Yet little did I know what will happen next. One day, a BJJ practitioner entered my dojo. We soon became friends, and he started teaching me BJJ on the side. I was destroyed and submitted by him every time, but I was constantly hungry for more.
Now, that also is not Aikido's fault. He found a BJJ practitioner who was very good at BJJ and better at combative grappling than him. That's a good thing. And see, that's why I say I know the problem that Rokas has with Aikido is not Rokas. Because when Rokas met some defeat or had some type of a problem, Rokas poured out his cup, stood it up, and said, fill it, teach me. Even though this is someone who had came to him subordinate to him, he said, I don't care what my status is in this organization. This individual has something to teach me. I want to learn. He could have very easily gotten away with retreating back into a Aikido show, but he kept an open mind. And that was good. And that's why, with a conclusion I'm going to come to at the end of this video, I'll save it.
After all, my goal was to become the best possible martial artist. A couple of months later,
And that should be our goal, to become the best possible martial artist, regardless of style, that we can be.
friend came up with a daring idea. He offered to train me even more intensively and then to enroll me in a BJJ tournament. I was scared, but at the same time, I was not going to say no. I knew that this was the path to become the best possible martial artist, and I agreed with enthusiasm and certainty.
Now that's why, I think that's the main reason why I really like this guy. I'm not big on tournaments, I'm not big on competitions myself, but I've done them. Because to me, the best thing a competition can do for you is not necessarily whether you win or lose. It's getting you to face those jitters. That is one of the best gifts competition can give you. To get you to face the jitters, to get you to prepare, go through the habit of preparing and focusing and training for that event. Because that's how life is. Sometimes you got to focus and prepare and train for events in life. And to be able to do that in physical movement, that's one of the best things you can do without having to actually get into illegal fights. It's not necessarily if you bring home the gold. It's the process of becoming golden. And once you've got that a few times, then if you don't want to compete anymore because you're like, I can do it, but it's still not for me, that's when I respect it. That's when I respect it. That's when I respect your choice, because that's the conclusion I came to. It's like, well, you know, I'm not doing this for a living. This isn't my primary living, even though I've competed a few times, and it is fun and it's challenging, and I kind of like the people I've met too along the way, whether I beat them or not. So, but yeah, no, I'm not going to take a lot of time into this because this is going to be costing me money, whereas my job makes me money.
I then wrote an email about this to my Aikido sensei. A few hours later, I received a phone call from him. This was not a common occurrence. I knew something is up. During the call, he told me he did not want me to participate in the tournament. He explained his concern that if I would participate, I would get hungry for more competitions and that would deviate me from my path of Aikido. He compared...
Now, that's true. Of course you get more hungry for competitions. I know that because it happened to me. And so what, though? So what? Deviate you from your path of Aikido? That's ridiculous. It's what? Is it going against the spirit of Aikido to try to do something that's going to make you improve? Are you serious? Now that makes me wonder, did his instructor actually read about Weishiba? Because Weishiba came up with Aikido after a lifetime of being a warrior. I bet you, I think, and I could be wrong about this, I think if Weishiba was alive, he would have encouraged this young man to take BJJ, and eventually he would have said, now that you know what BJJ is, what do you think about Aikido? And just looked at him and just left it up to him. That's what I would do. Instructors sometimes will tell you that they don't want you to take a certain style, or they may not necessarily approve of it, but it's usually because they don't want you to do something that's either going to cause you to get confused in your training. Like, for example, if you're only a yellow belt in Taekwondo and then you want to go take karate, they're so similar. What are you going to get out of that? If anything, if you were a yellow belt in Taekwondo, you want to take something else, you should take something like a judo or BJJ or some type of jiu-jitsu, and vice versa. If you're a yellow belt in judo and then you want to go take BJJ, they're too similar. Why don't you just finish up what you're doing in judo, get to Shonan in that, then go join the BJJ club and get up the ranks in that while you're being a competitive judoka or something like that. You know, if you're going to be a yellow belt in judo, you want to cross train because you feel like you want to be more well-rounded, you should take something that's totally unrelated to it, like boxing. Or take Taekwondo. Things that really widen your skill set if you're just going to be Joe Civilian. Or, like I've said, and I've said this before, if I really wanted to be a high-level judo competitor, I would not cross-train in anything else that wasn't a grappling art. And I would just focus on that. Okay? But saying it's that you don't want them to do it because of the spirit of competition, no. The only thing I personally have ever discouraged my students from actually doing is illegal underground fights. Because those are illegal, those are immoral, those are against the law, those will put you in handcuffs. If an instructor doesn't want you to do something because he's afraid or she's afraid that's going to put you in the handcuffs or put you in the hospital, that's a necessary criticism. But this other stuff about, it's going to make you hungry for more competition, that's a cop-out. That's somebody that I think is just trying to control you.
Himself to a concerned dad who wanted to prevent his son from driving under the influence. I did not see eye to eye to him and tried to disagree. He then told me that if I would decide to participate in the tournament, we would still be friends, but then he could no longer be my teacher and I could no longer be part of his organization.
Red flag, time to leave. Which he ultimately does in this video, because not letting you be in an Aikido organization because you're participating in BJJ, you could probably draw more people from BJJ into Aikido if you start doing well at BJJ, because they may feel like, I like grappling, that's my forte. Let me see this little different twist on it, and then how can I use that to improve what I'm doing now? So it sounds to me like he was in a toxic group. Let me see if I can find this other part of the video.
That I'm free to continue to pursue my YouTube work questioning Aikido, but then I could no longer be part of his organization or his student.
Now they don't even want him to make YouTube videos that question Aikido, and he's questioning Aikido to make it better. That's yet another red flag. So go back and watch his original video. It sounds to me like he was really more in a destructive group or controlling group than being in a situation to where, it's just a bad style. It's not the whole style is bad. I've met quite a few people who have used Aikido for real, and it works just fine for them. People that do bouncing security work or law enforcement use Aikido techniques just fine. So it's not the style. A lot of times, man, you're just in a bad organization. You're just with a bad group of people. They're just a bad group of martial artists, and you may want to get away from them. So I'm glad that Rokas, on his martial arts journey, has decided to journey away from people who are negative and destructive and who don't want him to learn. And you know what? Ironically, if he ever does come back to Aikido, in the long run, it might be his version of Aikido that ends up outliving the versions of Aikido where people act like they are afraid for their students to look anyplace else. Because you know what? If you're really good and your students go off with other people, you know what happens, right? They come back to you. They'll come back to you. Thanks for watching this video. Like, comment, and subscribe. Please share this with people like to talk about the martial arts. And please take a look at my biggest regret as an Aikido sensei. Don't think I'm hating on the guy. I'm not. My only bone to pick is to blame it on all Aikido. It's not all Aikido, man. He was just in a bad org. Honestly. And I respect the fact, I really admire that he had the strength of mind to realize he was walking in the wrong direction and to start moving into something else. To me, that's pretty cool. And peace. And as always, thank you for your time. Where them kicks at? Where them hands? Where those holds? Where those throws? You know what I'm saying? Holds. Cecil Taekwondo.